Leviticus is named after the tribe of Levi, one of the 12 sons of Israel. Priests for the nation of Israel were selected from the tribe of Levi. They were chosen to oversee the ministry in the holy tent, the tabernacle, where the priests met with God and sacrifices were offered to him. Leviticus is the story of the formation of this priesthood and the worship of God under the law of Moses. Here we find regulations for sacrifices and worship rituals. This book contains the accounting of God's laws regarding the social life of his people. It also tells us the tragic story of the sons of the first high priest, Aaron, and reveals just how dangerous it is to treat the Lord's holiness with contempt. He is a loving God, but he is also a holy God. This is Leviticus. The Book of Leviticus, Chapter 1. The Lord called to Moses and spoke to him from the meeting tent, saying, Tell the people of Israel, when you bring an offering to the Lord, bring as your offering an animal from the herd or flock. If the offering is a whole burnt offering from the herd, it must be a male that has nothing wrong with it. The person must take the animal to the entrance of the meeting tent, so that the Lord will accept the offering. He must put his hand on the animal's head, and the Lord will accept it to remove the person's sin, so he will belong to God. He must kill the young bull before the Lord, and Aaron's sons, the priests, must bring its blood and sprinkle it on all sides of the altar at the entrance to the meeting tent. After that, he will skin the animal and cut it into pieces. The priest, when they have put wood and fire on the altar, are to lay the head, the fat, and other pieces on the wood that is on the fire of the altar. The animal's inner organs and legs must be washed with water. Then the priest must burn all the animal's parts on the altar. It is a whole burnt offering, an offering made by fire, and its smell is pleasing to the Lord. If the burnt offering is a sheep or a goat from the flock, it must be a male that has nothing wrong with it. The person must kill the animal on the north side of the altar before the Lord, and Aaron's sons, the priests, must sprinkle its blood on all sides of the altar. The person must cut the animal into pieces, and the priest must lay them, with the head and fat, on the wood that is on the fire of the altar. The person must wash the animal's inner organs and legs with water, and then the priest must burn all its parts on the altar. It is a whole burnt offering, an offering made by fire, and its smell is pleasing to the Lord. If the whole burnt offering for the Lord is a bird, it must be a dove or a young pigeon. The priest will bring it to the altar and pull off its head, which he will burn on the altar. The bird's blood must be drained out on the side of the altar. The priest must remove the bird's crop and its contents, and throw them on the east side of the altar, where the ashes are. Then he must tear the bird open by its wings, without dividing it into two parts. He must burn the bird on the altar, on the wood which is on the fire. It is a whole burnt offering, an offering made by fire, and its smell is pleasing to the Lord. Chapter 2. When anyone offers a grain offering to the Lord, it must be made from fine flour. The person must pour oil on it, put incense on it, and then take it to Aaron's sons, the priests. The priest must take a handful of the fine flour and oil and all the incense, and burn it on the altar as a memorial portion. It is an offering made by fire, and its smell is pleasing to the Lord. The rest of the grain offering will belong to Aaron and the priests. It is a most holy part of the offering made by fire to the Lord. If you bring a grain offering that was baked in the oven, it must be made from fine flour. It may be loaves made without yeast and mixed with oil, or it may be wafers made without yeast that have oil poured over them. If your grain offering is cooked on a griddle, it must be made without yeast, of fine flour mixed with oil. Crumble it and pour oil over it. It is a grain offering. If your grain offering is cooked in a pan, it must be made from fine flour and oil. Bring the grain offering made of these things to the Lord. Give it to the priest. he will take it to the altar. He will take out the memorial portion from the grain offering and burn it on the altar, as an offering made by fire. Its smell is pleasing to the Lord. The rest of the grain offering belongs to Aaron and the priests. It is a most holy part of the offering made to the Lord by fire. Every grain offering you bring to the Lord must be made without yeast, because you must not burn any yeast or honey in an offering made by fire to the Lord. You may bring yeast and honey to the Lord as an offering from the first harvest, but they must not be burned on the altar as a pleasing smell. You must also put salt on all your grain offering. Salt stands for your agreement with God that will last forever. Do not leave it out of your grain offering. You must add salt to all your offerings. If you bring a grain offering from the first harvest to the Lord, bring crushed heads of new grain, roasted in the fire. Put oil and incense on it. It is a grain offering. The priest will burn the memorial portion of the crushed grain in oil with the incense on it. It is an offering by fire to the Lord. Chapter 3. If a person's fellowship offering to the Lord is from the herd, it may be a male or female, but it must have nothing wrong with it. The person must put his hand on the animal's head and kill it at the entrance to the meeting tent. Then Aaron's sons, the priests, must sprinkle the blood on all sides of the altar. From the fellowship offering, he must make a sacrifice by fire to the Lord. He must offer the fat of the animal's inner organs, both the fat that is in them and that covers them, both kidneys with the fat that is on them near the lower back muscle, and the best part of the liver, which he will remove with the kidneys. Then the priest will burn these parts on the altar, on the whole burnt offering that is on the wood of the fire. It is an offering made by fire, and its smell is pleasing to the Lord. If a person's fellowship offering to the Lord is a lamb or a goat, it may be a male or female, but it must have nothing wrong with it. If he offers a lamb, he must bring it before the Lord and put his hand on its head. Then he must kill the animal in front of the meeting tent, and the priest must sprinkle its blood on all sides of the altar. From the fellowship offering, the person must make a sacrifice by fire to the Lord. He must bring the fat, the whole fat tail cut off close to the backbone, the fat of the inner organs, both the fat that is in them and that covers them, both kidneys with the fat that is on them near the lower back muscle, and the best part of the liver, which he will remove with the kidneys. Then the priest will burn these parts on the altar as food. It will be an offering made by fire to the Lord. If a person's offering is a goat, he must offer it before the Lord and put his hand on its head. Then he must kill it in front of the meeting tent, and the priest must sprinkle its blood on all sides of the altar. From this offering the person must make a sacrifice by fire to the Lord. He must offer all the fat of the goat's inner organs, both the fat that is in them and that covers them, both kidneys with the fat that is on them near the lower back muscle, and the best part of the liver, which he will remove with the kidneys. The priest will burn these parts on the altar as food. It is an offering made by fire, and its smell is pleasing to the Lord. All the fat belongs to the Lord. This law will continue for people from now on. Wherever you live, you must not eat any fat or blood. Chapter 4. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell the people of Israel this. When a person sins by accident and does some things the Lord has commanded not to be done, that person must do these things. If the appointed priest sins so that he brings guilt on the people, he must offer a young bull to the Lord, one that has nothing wrong with it, as a sin offering for the sin he has done. He will bring the bull to the entrance of the meeting tent in front of the Lord, put his hand on its head and kill it before the Lord. Then the appointed priest must bring some of the bull's blood into the meeting tent. The priest is to dip his finger into the blood and sprinkle it 7 times before the Lord in front of the curtain of the most holy place. The priest must also put some of the blood on the corners of the altar of incense that stands before the Lord in the meeting tent. The rest of the blood he must pour out at the bottom of the altar of burnt offering, which is at the entrance of the meeting tent. He must remove all the fat from the bull of the sin offering, the fat on and around the inner organs, both kidneys with the fat that is on them near the lower back muscle, and the best part of the liver, which he will remove with the kidneys. He must do this in the same way the fat is removed from the bull of the fellowship offering. Then the priest must burn the animal parts on the altar of burnt offering. But the priest must carry off the skin of the bull and all its meat, along with the rest of the bull, its head, legs, intestines, and other inner organs. He must take it outside the camp to the special clean place where the ashes are poured out. He must burn it on a wood fire on the pile of ashes. If the whole nation of Israel sins accidentally without knowing it, and does something the Lord has commanded not to be done, they are guilty. When they learn about the sin they have done, they must offer a young bull as a sin offering and bring it before the meeting tent. The elders of the group of people must put their hands on the bull's head before the Lord, and it must be killed before the Lord. Then the appointed priest must bring some of the bull's blood into the meeting tent. Dipping his finger in the blood, he must sprinkle it 7 times before the Lord in front of the curtain. Then he must put some of the blood on the corners of the altar that is before the Lord in the meeting tent. The priest must pour out the rest of the blood at the bottom of the altar of burnt offering, which is at the entrance to the meeting tent. He must remove all the fat from the animal and burn it on the altar. He will do the same thing with this bull that he did with the first bull of the sin offering. In this way the priest removes the sins of the people, so they will belong to the Lord and be forgiven. Then the priest must carry the bull outside the camp and burn it, just as he did with the first bull. This is the sin offering for the whole community. If a ruler sins by accident and does something the Lord his God has commanded must not be done, he is guilty. When he learns about his sin, he must bring a male goat that has nothing wrong with it as his offering. The ruler must put his hand on the goat's head and kill it in the place where they killed the whole burnt offering before the Lord. It is a sin offering. The priest must take some of the blood of the sin offering on his finger and put it on the corners of the altar of burnt offering. He must pour out the rest of the blood at the bottom of the altar of burnt offering. He must burn all the goat's fat on the altar in the same way he burns the fat of the fellowship offerings. In this way, the priest removes the ruler's sin, so he belongs to the Lord, and the Lord will forgive him. If any person in the community sins by accident and does something which the Lord has commanded must not be done, he is guilty. When the person learns about his sin, he must bring a female goat that has nothing wrong with it as an offering for his sin. He must put his hand on the animal's head and kill it at the place of the whole burnt offering. Then the priest must take some of the goat's blood on his finger and put it on the corners of the altar of burnt offering. He must pour out the rest of the goat's blood at the bottom of the altar. Then the priest must remove all the goat's fat in the same way the fat is removed from the fellowship offering. He must burn it on the altar as a smell pleasing to the Lord. In this way, the priest will remove that person's sin, so he will belong to the Lord, and the Lord will forgive him. If this person brings a lamb as his offering for sin, he must bring a female that has nothing wrong with it. He must put his hand on the animal's head and kill it as a sin offering in the place where the whole burnt offering is killed. The priest must take some of the blood from the sin offering on his finger and put it on the corners of the altar of burnt offering. He must pour out the rest of the lamb's blood at the bottom of the altar. Then the priest must remove all the lamb's fat in the same way that the lamb's fat is removed from the fellowship offering. He must burn the pieces on the altar on top of the offerings made by fire for the Lord. In this way the priest will remove that person's sins, so he will belong to the Lord, and the Lord will forgive him. Chapter 5. If a person is ordered to tell in court what he has seen or what he knows, and he does not tell the court, he is guilty of sin. Or someone might touch something unclean, such as the dead body of an unclean wild animal, or an unclean farm animal, or an unclean crawling animal. Even if he does not know that he touched it, he will still be unclean and guilty of sin. Someone might touch human uncleanness, anything that makes someone unclean, and not know it. But when he learns about it, he will be guilty. Or someone might make a promise before the Lord without thinking. It might be a promise to do something bad or something good. It might be about anything. Even if he forgets about it, when he remembers, he will be guilty. When anyone is guilty of any of these things, he must tell how he sinned. He must bring an offering to the Lord as a penalty for sin. It must be a female lamb or goat from the flock. The priest will perform the acts to remove that person's sin, so he will belong to the Lord. But if the person cannot afford a lamb, he must bring 2 doves or 2 young pigeons to the Lord as the penalty for his sin. 1 bird must be for a sin offering, and the other must be for a whole burnt offering. He must bring them to the priest, who will first offer the one for the sin offering. He will pull the bird's head from its neck, but he will not pull it completely off. He must sprinkle the blood from the sin offering on the side of the altar, and then he must pour the rest of the blood at the bottom of the altar. It is a sin offering. Then the priest must offer the 2nd bird as a whole burnt offering, as the law says. In this way the priest will remove the person's sin, so he will belong to the Lord, and the Lord will forgive him. If the person cannot afford 2 doves or 2 pigeons, he must bring about 2 quarts of fine flour as an offering for sin. He must not put oil or incense on the flour, because it is a sin offering. He must bring the flour to the priest. The priest will take a handful of the flour as a memorial offering and burn it on the altar on top of the offerings made by fire to the Lord. It is a sin offering. In this way the priest will remove the person's sins, so he will belong to the Lord, and the Lord will forgive him. What is left of the sin offering belongs to the priest, like the grain offering. The Lord said to Moses, "If a person accidentally sins and does something against the holy things of the Lord, he must bring from the flock a male sheep that has nothing wrong with it. This will be his penalty offering to the Lord. Its value in silver must be correct, as set by the holy place measure. It is a penalty offering. That person must pay for the sin he did against the holy thing, adding 1/5 to its value. Then he must give it all to the priest. In this way the priest will remove the person's sin, so he will belong to the Lord, by using the male sheep as the penalty offering. And the Lord will forgive the person. If a person sins and does something the Lord has commanded not to be done, even if he does not know it, he is still guilty. He is responsible for his sin. He must bring the priest a male sheep from the flock, one that has nothing wrong with it and that is worth the correct amount. It will be a penalty offering. Though the person sinned without knowing it, with this offering the priest will remove the sin, so the person will belong to the Lord, and the Lord will forgive him. The person is guilty of doing wrong, so he must give the penalty offering to the Lord. Chapter 6. The Lord said to Moses, "A person might sin against the Lord by doing one of these sins. He might lie about what happened to something he was taking care of for someone else. Or he might lie about a promise he made. He might steal something or cheat someone. He might find something that had been lost and then lie about it. He might make a promise before the Lord about something and not mean it. Or he might do some other sin. If he does any of these things, he is guilty of sin. He must bring back whatever he stole or whatever he took by cheating. He must bring back the thing he took care of for someone else. He must bring back what he found and lied about, or what he made a false promise about. He must pay the full price plus an extra 1/5 of the value of what he took. He must give the money to the true owner on the day he brings his penalty offering. He must bring his penalty to the priest, a male sheep from the flock, one that does not have anything wrong with it, and that is worth the correct amount. It will be a penalty offering to the Lord. Then the priest will perform the acts to remove that person's sin, so he will belong to the Lord, and the Lord will forgive him for the sins that made him guilty. The Lord said to Moses, "Give this command to Aaron and the priests. These are the teachings about the whole burnt offering. The burnt offering must stay on the altar all night until morning, and the altar's fire must be kept burning. The priest must put on his linen robe and linen underclothes next to his body. Then he will remove the ashes from the burnt offering on the altar and put them beside the altar. Then he must take off those clothes and put on others and carry the ashes outside the camp to a special clean place. But the fire must be kept burning on the altar. It must not be allowed to go out. The priest must put more firewood on the altar every morning, place the whole burnt offering on the fire, and burn the fat of the fellowship offerings. The fire must be kept burning on the altar all the time. It must not go out. These are the teachings about the grain offering. The priests must bring it to the Lord in front of the altar. The priest must take a handful of fine flour with the oil and all of the incense on it, and burn the grain offering on the altar as a memorial offering to the Lord. Its smell is pleasing to him. Aaron and the priest may eat what is left, but it must be eaten without yeast in a holy place. They must eat it in the courtyard of the meeting tent. It must not be cooked with yeast. I have given it as their share of the offerings made to me by fire. It is most holy, like the sin offering and the penalty offering. Any male descendant of Aaron may eat it as his share of the offerings made to the Lord by fire, and this will continue from now on. Whatever touches these offerings shall become holy. The Lord said to Moses, "This is the offering Aaron and the priests must bring to the Lord on the day they appoint Aaron as high priest. They must bring 2 quarts of fine flour for a continual grain offering, half of it in the morning and half in the evening. The fine flour must be mixed with oil and cooked on a griddle. Bring it when it is well mixed. Present the grain offering that is broken into pieces, and it will be a smell that is pleasing to the Lord. One of the priests, appointed to take Aaron's place as high priest, must make the grain offering. It is a rule forever that the grain offering must be completely burned to the Lord. Every grain offering made by a priest must be completely burned. It must not be eaten." The Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron and the priest, these are the teachings about the sin offering. The sin offering must be killed in front of the Lord in the same place the whole burnt offering is killed. It is most holy. The priest who offers the sin offering must eat it in a holy place, in the courtyard of the meeting tent. Whatever touches the meat of the sin offering must be holy, and if the blood is sprinkled on any clothes, you must wash them in a holy place. The clay pot the meat is cooked in must be broken, or if a bronze pot is used, it must be scrubbed and rinsed with water. Any male in a priest's family may eat the offering. It is most holy. But if the blood of the sin offering is taken into the meeting tent and used to remove sin in the holy place, that sin offering must be burned with fire. It must not be eaten." Chapter 7. These are the teachings about the penalty offering, which is most holy. The penalty offering must be killed where the whole burnt offering is killed. Then the priest must sprinkle its blood on all sides of the altar. He must offer all the fat from the penalty offering: the fat tail, the fat that covers the inner organs, both kidneys with the fat that is on them near the lower back muscle, and the best part of the liver, which is to be removed with the kidneys. The priest must burn all these things on the altar as an offering made by fire to the Lord. It is a penalty offering. Any male in a priest's family may eat it. It is most holy, so it must be eaten in a holy place. The penalty offering is like the sin offering, in that the teachings are the same for both. The priest who offers the sacrifice to remove sins will get the meat for food. The priest who offers the burnt offering may also have the skin from it. Every grain offering that is baked in an oven, cooked on a griddle, or baked in a dish belongs to the priest who offers it. Every grain offering, either dry or mixed with oil, belongs to the priests, and all priests will share alike. These are the teachings about the fellowship offering a person may offer to the Lord. If he brings the fellowship offering to show his thanks, he should also bring loaves of bread made without yeast that are mixed with oil, wafers made without yeast that have oil poured over them, and loaves of fine flour that are mixed with oil. He must also offer loaves of bread made with yeast, along with his fellowship offering, which he gives to show thanks. One of each kind of offering will be for the Lord. It will be given to the priest who sprinkles the blood of the fellowship offering. When the fellowship offering is given to thank the Lord, the meat from it must be eaten the same day it is offered. None of it must be left until morning. If a person brings a fellowship offering just to give a gift to God, or because of a special promise to Him, the sacrifice should be eaten the same day he offers it. If there is any left, it may be eaten the next day. If any meat from this sacrifice is left on the third day, it must be burned up. Any meat of the fellowship offering eaten on the third day will not be accepted, nor will the sacrifice count for the person who offered it. It will become unclean, and anyone who eats the meat will be guilty of sin. People must not eat meat that touches anything unclean. They must burn this meat with fire. Anyone who is clean may eat other meat. But if anyone is unclean and eats the meat from the fellowship offering that belongs to the Lord, he must be cut off from his people. If anyone touches something unclean, uncleanness that comes from people, from an animal, or from some hated thing, touching it will make him unclean. If he then eats meat from the fellowship offering that belongs to the Lord, he must be cut off from his people. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell the people of Israel, you must not eat any of the fat from cattle, sheep, or goats. If an animal is found dead or torn by wild animals, you may use its fat for other things, but you must not eat it. If someone eats fat from an animal offering made by fire to the Lord, he must be cut off from his people. No matter where you live, you must not eat blood from any bird or animal. Anyone who eats blood must be cut off from his people." The Lord said to Moses, "Tell the people of Israel, if someone brings a fellowship offering to the Lord, he must give part of it as his sacrifice to the Lord. He must carry that part of the gift in his own hands as an offering made by fire to the Lord. He must bring the fat and the breast of the animal to the priest, to be presented to the Lord as the priest's share. Then the priest must burn the fat on the altar. But the breast of the animal will belong to Aaron and the priests. He must also give the right thigh from the fellowship offering to the priest as a gift. It will belong to the priest who offers the blood and fat of the fellowship offering. I have taken the breast and the thigh from the fellowship offerings of the Israelites, and I have given these parts to Aaron and the priests as their share for all time from the Israelites. This is the portion that belongs to Aaron and his sons from the offerings made by fire to the Lord. They were given this share on the day they were presented to the Lord as priests. On the day the Lord appointed the priests, He commanded Israel to give this share to them, and it will be given to the priests as their share from now on. These are the teachings about the whole burnt offering, the grain offering, the sin offering, the penalty offering, the offering for the appointment of priests, and the fellowship offering. The Lord gave these teachings to Moses on Mount Sinai on the day He commanded the Israelites to bring their offerings to the Lord in the Sinai desert. Chapter 8. The Lord said to Moses, "Bring Aaron and his sons and their clothes, the special olive oil used in appointing people and things to the service of the Lord, the bull of the sin offering, and the 2 male sheep, and the baskets of bread made without yeast. Then gather the people together at the entrance to the meeting tent." Moses did as the Lord commanded him, and the people met together at the entrance to the meeting tent. Then Moses spoke to the people and said, "This is what the Lord has commanded to be done." Bringing Aaron and his sons forward, Moses washed them with water. He put the inner robe on Aaron and tied the cloth belt around him. Then Moses put the outer robe on him and placed the holy vest on him. He tied the skillfully woven belt around him so that the holy vest was tied to Aaron. Then Moses put the chest covering on him and put the Urim and the Thummim in the chest covering. He also put the turban on Aaron's head. He put the strip of gold, the holy crown, on the front of the turban as the Lord commanded him to do. Then Moses put the special oil on the holy tent and everything in it, making them holy for the Lord. He sprinkled some oil on the altar 7 times, sprinkling the altar and all its tools and the large bowl and its base. In this way he made them holy for the Lord. He poured some of the special oil on Aaron's head to make Aaron holy for the Lord. Then Moses brought Aaron's sons forward. He put the inner robes on them, tied cloth belts around them, and put headbands on them, as the Lord had commanded him. Then Moses brought the bull for the sin offering, and Aaron and his sons put their hands on its head. Moses killed the bull, took the blood, and with his finger put some of it on all the corners of the altar to make it pure. Then he poured out the rest of the blood at the bottom of the altar. In this way he made it holy and ready for service to God. Moses took all the fat from the inner organs of the bull, the best part of the liver, and both kidneys with the fat that is on them, and he burned them on the altar. But he took the bull's skin, its meat, and its intestines, and burned them in a fire outside the camp, as the Lord had commanded him. Next Moses brought the male sheep of the burnt offering, and Aaron and his sons put their hands on its head. Then Moses killed it and sprinkled the blood on all sides of the altar. He cut the male sheep into pieces and burned the head, the pieces, and the fat. He washed the inner organs and legs with water and burned the whole sheep on the altar as a burnt offering made by fire to the Lord. Its smell was pleasing to the Lord. Moses did these things as the Lord had commanded him. Then Moses brought the other male sheep, the one used in appointing Aaron and his sons as priests. And Aaron and his sons put their hands on its head. Then Moses killed the sheep and put some of its blood on the bottom of Aaron's right ear, some on the thumb of Aaron's right hand, and some on the big toe of his right foot. Then Moses brought Aaron's sons close to the altar. He put some of the blood on the bottom of their right ears, some on the thumb of their right hands, and some on the big toes of their right feet. Then he sprinkled blood on all sides of the altar. He took the fat tail, all the fat on the inner organs, the best part of the liver, both kidneys with their fat, and the right thigh. From the basket of bread made without yeast that is put before the Lord each day, Moses took a loaf of bread, a loaf made with oil, and a wafer. He put these pieces of bread on the fat and right thigh of the male sheep. All these things he put in the hands of Aaron and his sons, and presented them as an offering before the Lord. Then Moses took them from their hands, and burned them on the altar on top of the burnt offering. So this was the offering for appointing Aaron and his sons as priests. It was an offering made by fire to the Lord, and its smell was pleasing to him. Moses also took the breast and presented it as an offering before the Lord. It was Moses' share of the male sheep used in appointing the priest, as the Lord had commanded him. Moses took some of the special oil and some of the blood which was on the altar, and he sprinkled them on Aaron and Aaron's clothes, and on Aaron's sons and their clothes. And this way Moses made Aaron, his clothes, his sons, and their clothes holy for the Lord. Then Moses said to Aaron and his sons, I gave you a command, saying, Aaron and his sons will eat these things. So take the meat and basket of bread from the offering for appointing priests. Boil the meat at the door of the meeting tent, and eat it there with the bread. If any of the meat or bread is left, burn it. The time of appointing will last 7 days. You must not go outside the entrance of the meeting tent until that time is up. Stay there until the time of your appointing is finished. The Lord commanded the things that were done today to remove your sins, so you will belong to Him. You must stay at the entrance of the meeting tent day and night for 7 days. If you don't obey the Lord's commands, you will die. The Lord has given me these commands. So Aaron and his sons did everything the Lord had commanded through Moses. Chapter 9. On the 8th day after the time of appointing, Moses called for Aaron and his sons and for all the elders of Israel. He said to Aaron, Take a bull calf and a male sheep that have nothing wrong with them, and offer them to the Lord. The calf will be a sin offering, and the male sheep will be a whole burnt offering. Tell the people of Israel, Take a male goat for a sin offering, and a calf and a lamb for a whole burnt offering. Each must be 1 year old, and it must have nothing wrong with it. Also take a bull and a male sheep for fellowship offerings, along with a grain offering mixed with oil. Offer all these things to the Lord, because the Lord will appear to you today. So all the people came to the front of the meeting tent, bringing the things Moses had commanded them to bring, and they stood before the Lord. Moses said, You have done what the Lord commanded, so you will see the Lord's glory. Then Moses told Aaron, Go to the altar and offer sin offerings and whole burnt offerings. Do this to remove your sins and the people's sins, so you will belong to God. Offer the sacrifices for the people and perform the acts to remove their sins for them, so they will belong to the Lord, as the Lord has commanded. So Aaron went to the altar and killed the bull calf as a sin offering for himself. Then his sons brought the blood to him, and he dipped his finger in the blood and put it on the corners of the altar. He poured out the rest of the blood at the bottom of the altar. Aaron took the fat, the kidneys, and the best part of the liver from the sin offering and burned them on the altar, in the way the Lord had commanded Moses. The meat and skin he burned outside the camp. Then Aaron killed the animal for the whole burnt offering. His sons brought the blood to him, and he sprinkled it on all sides of the altar. As they gave him the pieces and head of the burnt offering, Aaron burned them on the altar. He also washed the inner organs and the legs of the burnt offering, and burned them on top of the burnt offering on the altar. Then Aaron brought the offering that was for the people. He took the goat of the people's sin offering and killed it, and offered it for the sin offering, just as he had done the first sin offering. Then Aaron brought the whole burnt offering and offered it in the way that the Lord had commanded. He also brought the grain offering to the altar. He took a handful of the grain and burned it on the altar, in addition to the morning's burnt offering. Aaron also killed the bull and the male sheep as the fellowship offerings for the people. His sons brought him the blood, and he sprinkled it on all sides of the altar. Aaron's sons also brought to Aaron the fat of the bull and the male sheep, the fat tail, the fat covering the inner organs, the kidneys, and the best part of the liver. Aaron's sons put them on the breast of the bull and the sheep. Then Aaron burned these fat parts on the altar. He presented the breast and the right thigh before the Lord as the priest's share of the offering, as Moses had commanded. Then Aaron lifted his hands toward the people and blessed them. When he had finished offering the sin offering, the burnt offering, and the fellowship offering, he stepped down from the altar. Moses and Aaron went into the meeting tent. Then they came out and blessed the people, and the Lord's glory came to all the people. Fire came out from the Lord and burned up the burnt offering and the fat on the altar. When the people saw this, they shouted with joy and bowed face down on the ground. Chapter 10. Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu, took their pans for burning incense, put fire in them, and added incense. But they did not use the special fire Moses had commanded them to use in the presence of the Lord. So fire came down from the Lord and destroyed Nadab and Abihu, and they died in front of the Lord. Then Moses said to Aaron, "This is what the Lord was speaking about when he said, 'I must be respected as holy by those who come near me. Before all the people I must be given honor.'" So Aaron did not say anything about the death of his sons. Aaron's uncle, Uzziel, had 2 sons, named Mishael and Elzaphan. Moses said to them, "Come here and pick up your cousins' bodies. Carry them outside the camp, away from the front of the holy place." So Mishael and Elzaphan obeyed Moses and carried the bodies of Nadab and Abihu, still clothed in the special priest's inner robes, outside the camp. Then Moses said to Aaron and his other sons, Eleazar and Ithamar, "Don't show sadness by tearing your clothes or leaving your hair uncombed. If you do, you will die, and the Lord will be angry with all the people. All the people of Israel, your relatives, may cry loudly about the Lord burning Nadab and Abihu, but you must not even leave the meeting tent. If you go out of the entrance, you will die, because the Lord has appointed you to his service." So Aaron, Eleazar, and Ithamar obeyed Moses. Then the Lord said to Aaron, "You and your sons must not drink wine or beer when you go into the meeting tent. If you do, you will die. This law will continue from now on. You must keep what is holy separate from what is not holy. You must keep what is clean separate from what is unclean. You must teach the people all the laws that the Lord gave to them through Moses." Moses said to Aaron and his remaining sons, Eleazar and Ithamar, "Eat the part of the grain offering that is left from the sacrifices offered by fire to the Lord, but do not add yeast to it. Eat it near the altar because it is most holy. You must eat it in a holy place, because this part of the offering made by fire to the Lord belongs to you and your sons. I have been commanded to tell you this. Also, you and your sons and daughters may eat the breast and thigh of the fellowship offering that was presented to the Lord. You must eat them in a clean place. They are your share of the fellowship offerings given by the Israelites. The people must bring the fat from their animals that was part of the offering made by fire, and they must present it to the Lord, along with the thigh and the breast of the fellowship offering. They will be the regular share of the offerings for you and your children, as the Lord has commanded." Moses looked for the goat of the sin offering, but it had already been burned up. So he became very angry with Eleazar and Ithamar, Aaron's remaining sons. He said, "Why didn't you eat that goat in a holy place? It is most holy, and the Lord gave it to you to take away the guilt of the people, to remove their sins so they will belong to the Lord. You didn't bring the goat's blood inside the holy place. You were supposed to eat the goat in a holy place as I commanded." But Aaron said to Moses, "Today they brought their sin offerings and burnt offerings before the Lord. But these terrible things have still happened to me. Do you think the Lord would be any happier if I ate the sin offering today?" When Moses heard this, he was satisfied. Chapter 11. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Tell the Israelites this: These are the land animals you may eat. You may eat any animal that has split hooves completely divided and that chews the cud. Some animals only chew the cud, or only have split hooves, and you must not eat them. The camel chews the cud, but does not have a split hoof. It is unclean for you. The rock badger chews the cud, but does not have a split hoof. It is unclean for you. The rabbit chews the cud, but does not have a split hoof. It is unclean for you. Now the pig has a split hoof that is completely divided, but it does not chew the cud. It is unclean for you. You must not eat the meat from these animals, or even touch their dead bodies. They are unclean for you. Of the animals that live in the sea or in a river, if the animal has spines and scales, you may eat it. But whatever lives in the sea or in a river and does not have fins and scales, including the things that fill the water, and all other things that live in it, you should hate. You must not eat any meat from them, or even touch their dead bodies, because you should hate them. You must hate any animal in the water that does not have fins and scales. Also, these are the birds you are to hate. They are hateful and should not be eaten. You must not eat eagles, vultures, black vultures, kites, any kind of falcon, any kind of raven, horned owls, screech owls, seagull, any kind of hawk, little owls, cormorants, great owls, white owls, desert owls, ospreys, storks, any kind of heron, hoopoes, or bats. Don't eat insects that have wings and walk on all 4 feet. They also are to be hated. But you may eat certain insects that have wings and walk on 4 feet. You may eat those that have legs with joints above their feet so they can jump. These are the insects you may eat: all kinds of locust, wing locust, crickets, and grasshoppers. But all other insects that have wings and walk on 4 feet you are to hate. Those insects will make you unclean, and anyone who touches the dead body of one of these insects will become unclean until evening. Anyone who picks up one of these dead insects must wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. Some animals have split hoofs, but the hoofs are not completely divided. Others do not chew the cud. They are unclean for you. And anyone who touches the dead body of one of these animals will become unclean. Of all the animals that walk on 4 feet, the animals that walk on their paws are unclean for you. Anyone who touches the dead body of one of these animals will become unclean until evening. Anyone who picks up their dead bodies must wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. These animals are unclean for you. These crawling animals are unclean for you: moles, rats, all kinds of great lizards, geckos, crocodiles, lizards, sand reptiles, and chameleons. These crawling animals are unclean for you. Anyone who touches their dead bodies will be unclean until evening. If an unclean animal dies and falls on something, that item will also become unclean. This includes anything made from wood, cloth, leather, or rough cloth, regardless of its use. Whatever the animal falls on must be washed with water and be unclean until evening. Then it will become clean again. If the dead, unclean animal falls into a clay bowl, anything in the bowl will become unclean, and you must break the bowl. If water from the unclean clay bowl gets on any food, that food will become unclean. If any dead, unclean animal falls on something, it becomes unclean. If it is a clay oven or a clay baking pan, it must be broken into pieces. These things will be unclean. They are unclean for you. A spring or well that collects water will stay clean, but anyone who touches the dead body of any unclean animal will become unclean. If a dead, unclean animal falls on a seed to be planted, that seed is still clean. But if you put water on some seeds, and a dead, unclean animal falls on them, they are unclean for you. Also, if an animal, which you use for food, dies, anyone who touches its body will be unclean until evening. Anyone who eats meat from this animal's dead body must wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. Anyone who picks up the animal's dead body must wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. Every animal that crawls on the ground is to be hated. It must not be eaten. You must not eat any of the animals that crawl on the ground, including those that crawl on their stomachs, that walk on all 4 feet, or on many feet. They are to be hated. Do not make yourself unclean by these animals. You must not become unclean by them. I am the Lord your God. Keep yourselves holy for me, because I am holy. Don't make yourselves unclean with any of these crawling animals. I am the Lord who brought you out of Egypt to be your God. You must be holy, because I am holy. These are the teachings about all of the cattle, birds, and other animals on earth, as well as the animals in the sea and those that crawl on the ground. These teachings help people know the difference between unclean animals and clean animals. They help people know which animals may be eaten and which ones must not be eaten. Chapter 12. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell the people of Israel this: If a woman gives birth to a son, she will become unclean for 7 days, as she is unclean during her monthly period. On the 8th day the boy must be circumcised. Then it will be 33 days before she becomes clean from her loss of blood. She must not touch anything that is holy or enter the holy tent until her time of cleansing is finished. But if she gives birth to a daughter, the mother will be unclean for 2 weeks, as she is unclean during her monthly period. It will be 66 days before she becomes clean from her loss of blood. After she has a son or daughter, and her days of cleansing are over, the new mother must bring certain sacrifices to the meeting tent. She must give the priest at the entrance a year-old lamb for a burnt offering, and a dove or young pigeon for a sin offering. He will offer them before the Lord to make her clean, so she will belong to the Lord again. Then she will be clean from her loss of blood. These are the teachings for a woman who gives birth to a boy or girl. If she cannot afford a lamb, she is to bring 2 doves or 2 young pigeons, one for a burnt offering and one for a sin offering. In this way the priest will make her clean, so she will belong to the Lord again, and she will be clean. Chapter 13. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Someone might have on his skin a swelling or a rash or a bright spot. If the sore looks like a harmful skin disease, the person must be brought to Aaron the priest, or to one of Aaron's sons, the priests. The priest must look at the sore on the person's skin. If the hair in the sore has become white, and the sore seems deeper than the person's skin, it is a harmful skin disease. When he has finished looking at the person, the priest must announce that the person is unclean. If there is a white spot on a person's skin, but the spot does not seem deeper than the skin, and if the hair from the spot has not turned white, the priest must separate that person from other people for 7 days. On the 7th day, the priest must look at the person again. If he sees that the sore has not changed, and it has not spread on the skin, the priest must keep the person separated for 7 more days. On the 7th day, the priest must look at the person again. If the sore has faded and has not spread on the skin, the priest must announce that the person is clean. The sore is only a rash. The person must wash his clothes, and he will become clean again. But if the rash spreads again after the priest has announced him clean, the person must come again to the priest. The priest must look at him, and if the rash has spread on the skin, the priest must announce that the person is unclean. It is a harmful skin disease. If a person has a harmful skin disease, he must be brought to the priest, and the priest must look at him. If there is a white swelling in the skin, and the hair has become white, and the skin looks raw in the swelling, it is a harmful skin disease. It is one he has had for a long time. The priest must announce that the person is unclean. He will not need to separate that person from other people, because everyone already knows that the person is unclean. If the skin disease spreads all over a person's body, covering his skin from his head to his feet, as far as the priest can see, The priest must look at the person's whole body. If the priest sees that the disease covers the whole body and has turned all of the person's skin white, he must announce that the person is clean. But when the person has an open sore, he is unclean. When the priest sees the open sore, he must announce that the person is unclean. The open sore is not clean. It is a harmful skin disease. If the open sore becomes white again, the person must come to the priest. The priest must look at him, and if the sores have become white, the priest must announce that the person with the sores is clean. Then he will be clean. Someone may have a boil on his skin that is healed. If in that place where the boil was, there is a white swelling or a bright red spot, this place on the skin must be shown to the priest, and the priest must look at it. If the spot seems deeper than the skin, and the hair on it has become white, the priest must announce that the person is unclean. The spot is a harmful skin disease that has broken out from inside the boil. But if the priest looks at the spot, and there are no white hairs in it, and the spot is not deeper than the skin, and it has faded, the priest must separate the person from other people for 7 days. If the spot spreads on the skin, the priest must announce that the person is unclean. It is a disease that will spread. But if the bright spot does not spread or change, it is only the scar from the old boil. Then the priest must announce that the person is clean. When a person gets a burn on his skin, if the open sore becomes white or red, the priest must look at it. If the white spot seems deeper than the skin, and the hair at that spot has become white, it is a harmful skin disease. The disease has broken out in the burn, and the priest must announce that the person is unclean. It is a harmful skin disease. But if the priest looks at the spot, and there is no white hair in the bright spot, and the spot is no deeper than the skin and has faded, the priest must separate the person from other people for 7 days. On the 7th day, the priest must look at him again. If the spot has spread on the skin, the priest must announce that the person is unclean. It is a harmful skin disease. But if the bright spot has not spread on the skin, but has faded, it is the swelling from the burn. The priest must announce that the person is clean, because the spot is only a scar from the burn. When a man or a woman gets a sore on the scalp or on the chin, a priest must look at the sore. If it seems deeper than the skin, and the hair around it is thin and yellow, the priest must announce that the person is unclean. It is an itch, a harmful skin disease of the head or chin. But if the priest looks at it and it does not seem deeper than the skin, and there is no black hair in it, the priest must separate the person from other people for 7 days. On the 7th day, the priest must look at the sore. If it has not spread, and there are no yellow hairs growing in it, and the sore does not seem deeper than the skin, the person must shave himself, but he must not shave the sore place. The priest must separate that person from other people for 7 more days. On the 7th day, the priest must look at the sore. If it has not spread on the skin, and it does not seem deeper than the skin, the priest must announce that the person is clean. So the person must wash his clothes and become clean. But if the sore spreads on the skin after the person has become clean, the priest must look at him again. If the sore has spread on the skin, the priest doesn't need to look for the yellowish hair. The person is unclean. But if the priest thinks the sore has stopped spreading, and black hair is growing in it, the sore has healed. The person is clean, and the priest must announce that he is clean. When a man or a woman has white spots on the skin, a priest must look at them. If the spots on the skin are dull white, the disease is only a harmless rash. That person is clean. When anyone loses hair from his head and is bald, he is clean. If he loses hair from the front of his head and has a bald forehead, he is clean. But if there is a red-white sore on his bald head or forehead, it is a skin disease breaking out in those places. A priest must look at that person. If the swelling of the sore on his bald head or forehead is red-white, like a skin disease that spreads, that person has a skin disease. He is unclean. The priest must announce that the person is unclean because of the sore on his head. If a person has a skin disease that spreads, he must warn other people by shouting, "Unclean! Unclean!" His clothes must be torn at the seams. He must let his hair stay uncombed, and he must cover his mouth. That person will be unclean the whole time he has the disease. He is unclean. He must live alone outside the camp. Clothing might have mildew on it. It might be clothing made of linen or wool, either woven or knitted, or of leather, or something made from leather. If the mildew in the clothing, leather, or woven or knitted material is green or red, it is a spreading mildew. It must be shown to the priest. The priest must look at the mildew, and he must put that piece of clothing in a separate place for 7 days. On the 7th day, he must look at the mildew again. If the mildew has spread on the cloth, either woven or knitted, or the leather, no matter what the leather was used for, it is a mildew that destroys. It is unclean. The priest must burn the clothing. It does not matter if it is woven or knitted, wool or linen, or made of leather, because the mildew is spreading. It must be burned. If the priest sees that the mildew has not spread in the cloth, either knitted or woven or leather, he must order the people to wash that piece of leather or cloth. Then he must separate the clothing for 7 more days. After the piece with the mildew has been washed, the priest must look at it again. If the mildew still looks the same, the piece is unclean, even if the mildew has not spread. You must burn it in fire. It does not matter if the mildew is on one side or the other. But when the priest looks at that piece of leather or cloth, the mildew might have faded after the piece has been washed. Then the priest must tear the mildew out of the piece of leather or cloth, either woven or knitted. But if the mildew comes back to that piece of leather or cloth, either woven or knitted, the mildew is spreading, and whatever has the mildew must be burned with fire. When the cloth, either woven or knitted, or the leather is washed and the mildew is gone, it must be washed again. Then it will be clean. These are the teachings about mildew on pieces of cloth, either woven or knitted, or leather, to decide if they are clean or unclean. Chapter 14. The Lord said to Moses, "These are the teachings for the time at which people who had a harmful skin disease are made clean. The person shall be brought to the priest, and the priest must go outside the camp and look at the one who had the skin disease. If the skin disease is healed, the priest will command that 2 living, clean birds, a piece of cedar wood, a piece of red string, and a hyssop plant be brought for cleansing the person with the skin disease. The priest must order 1 bird to be killed in a clay bowl containing fresh water. Then he will take the living bird, the piece of cedar wood, the red string, and the hyssop. All these he will dip into the blood of the bird that was killed over the fresh water. The priest will sprinkle the blood 7 times on the person being cleansed from the skin disease. He must announce that the person is clean, and then go to an open field and let the living bird go free. The person to be cleansed must wash his clothes, shave off all his hair, and bathe in water. Then he will be clean and may go into the camp, though he must stay outside his tent for the first 7 days. On the 7th day, he must shave off all his hair, the hair from his head, his beard, his eyebrows, and the rest of his hair. He must wash his clothes and bathe his body in water, and he will be clean. On the 8th day, the person who had the skin disease must take 2 male lambs that have nothing wrong with them, and a year-old female lamb that has nothing wrong with it. He must also take 6 quarts of fine flour mixed with oil for a grain offering, and 2/3 of a pint of olive oil. The priest who is to announce that the person is clean must bring him and his sacrifices before the Lord at the entrance of the meeting tent. The priest will take 1 of the male lambs and offer it with the olive oil as a penalty offering. He will present them before the Lord as an offering. Then he will kill the male lamb in the holy place, where the sin offering and the whole burnt offering are killed. The penalty offering is like the sin offering. It belongs to the priest, and it is most holy. The priest will take some of the blood of the penalty offering and put it on the bottom of the right ear of the person to be made clean. He will also put some of it on the thumb of the person's right hand and on the big toe of the person's right foot. Then the priest will take some of the oil and pour it into his own left hand. He will dip a finger of his right hand into the oil that is in his left hand, and with his finger he will sprinkle some of the oil 7 times before the Lord. The priest will put some oil on his hand on the bottom of the right ear of the person to be made clean, some on the thumb of the person's right hand, and some on the big toe of the person's right foot. The oil will go on these places on top of the blood for the penalty offering. He will put the rest of the oil that is in his left hand on the head of the person to be made clean. In this way, the priest will make that person clean, so he can belong to the Lord again. Next, the priest will offer the sin offering to make that person clean, so he can belong to the Lord again. After this, the priest will kill the animal for the whole burnt offering, and he will offer the burnt offering and grain offering on the altar. In this way, he will make that person clean, so he can belong to the Lord again. But if the person is poor and unable to afford these offerings, he must take 1 male lamb for a penalty offering. It will be presented to the Lord to make him clean, so he can belong to the Lord again. The person must also take 2 quarts of fine flour, mixed with oil for a grain offering. He must also take 2/3 of a pint of olive oil, and 2 doves or 2 young pigeons, which he can afford. 1 bird is for a sin offering, and the other for a whole burnt offering. On the 8th day the person will bring them for his cleansing to the priest at the entrance of the meeting tent before the Lord. The priest will take the lamb for the penalty offering and the oil, and he will present them as an offering before the Lord. Then he will kill the lamb of the penalty offering, take some of its blood, and put it on the bottom of the right ear of the person to be made clean. The priest will put some of this blood on the thumb of the person's right hand, and some on the big toe of the person's right foot. He will also pour some of the oil into his own left hand. Then with the finger of his right hand, he will sprinkle some of the oil from his left hand 7 times before the Lord. The priest will take some of the oil from his hand and put it on the bottom of the right ear of the person to be made clean. He will also put some of it on the thumb of the person's right hand, and some on the big toe of the person's right foot. The oil will go on these places on top of the blood from the penalty offering. The priest must put the rest of the oil that is in his hand on the head of the person to be made clean, to make him clean so he can belong to the Lord again. Then the priest will offer 1 of the doves or young pigeons, which the person can afford. He must offer 1 of the birds for a sin offering, and the other for a whole burnt offering, along with the grain offering. In this way the priest will make the person clean, so he can belong to the Lord again. He will become clean. These are the teachings for making a person clean after he has had a skin disease, if he cannot afford the regular sacrifices for becoming clean. The Lord also said to Moses and Aaron, I am giving the land of Canaan to your people. When they enter that land, if I cause mildew to grow in someone's house in that land, the owner of that house must come and tell the priest. He should say, I have seen something like mildew in my house. Then the priest must order the people to empty the house before he goes in to look at the mildew. This is so he will not have to say that everything in the house is unclean. After this, the priest will go in to look at it. He will look at the mildew, and if the mildew on the walls of the house is green or red and goes into the wall's surface, he must go out and close up the house for 7 days. On the 7th day, the priest must come back and check the house. If the mildew has spread on the walls of the house, the priest must order the people to tear out the stones with the mildew on them. They should throw them away at a certain unclean place outside the city. Then the priest must have all the inside of the house scraped. The people must throw away the plaster they scraped off the walls at a certain unclean place outside the city. Then the owner must put new stones in the walls, and he must cover the walls with new clay plaster. Suppose a person has taken away the old stones and plaster and put in new stones and plaster. If mildew again appears in his house, the priest must come back and check the house again. If the mildew has spread in the house, it is a mildew that destroys things. The house is unclean. Then the owner must tear down the house, remove all its stones, plaster, and wood, and take them to the unclean place outside the city. Anyone who goes into that house while it is closed up will be unclean until evening. Anyone who eats in that house or lies down there must wash his clothes. Suppose after new stones and plaster have been put in a house, the priest checks it again and the mildew has not spread. Then the priest will announce that the house is clean, because the mildew is gone. Then, to make the house clean, the priest must take 2 birds, a piece of cedar wood, a piece of red string, and a hyssop plant. He will kill 1 bird in a clay bowl containing fresh water. Then he will take the bird that is still alive, the cedar wood, the hyssop, and the red string, and he will dip them into the blood of the bird that was killed over the fresh water. The priest will sprinkle the blood on the house 7 times. He will use the bird's blood, the fresh water, the live bird, the cedar wood, the hyssop, and the red string to make the house clean. He will then go to an open field outside the city and let the living bird go free. This is how the priest makes the house clean and ready for service to the Lord. These are the teachings about any kind of skin disease, mildew on pieces of cloth or in a house, swellings, rashes, or bright spots on the skin. They help people decide when things are unclean and when they are clean. These are the teachings about all these kinds of diseases. Chapter 15. The Lord also said to Moses and Aaron, "Say to the people of Israel, when a fluid comes from a person's body, the fluid is unclean. It doesn't matter if the fluid flows freely or if it is blocked from flowing. The fluid will make him unclean. This is the way the fluid makes him unclean. If the person who discharges the body fluid lies on a bed, that bed becomes unclean, and everything he sits on becomes unclean. Anyone who touches his bed must wash his clothes and bathe in water, and the person will be unclean until evening. Whoever sits on something that the person who discharges the fluid sat on must wash his clothes and bathe in water. He will be unclean until evening. Anyone who touches the person who discharges the body fluid must wash his clothes and bathe in water. He will be unclean until evening. If the person who discharges the body fluid spits on someone who is clean, that person must wash his clothes and bathe in water. He will be unclean until evening. Everything on which the person who is unclean sits when riding will become unclean. Anyone who touches something that was under him will be unclean until evening, and anyone who carries these things must wash his clothes and bathe in water. He will be unclean until evening. If the person who discharges a body fluid has not washed his hands in water and touches another person, that person must wash his clothes and bathe in water. He will be unclean until evening. If a person who discharges a body fluid touches a clay bowl, that bowl must be broken. If he touches a wooden bowl, that bowl must be washed in water. When a person who discharges a body fluid is made clean, he must count 7 days for himself for his cleansing. He must wash his clothes and bathe his body in fresh water, and he will be clean. On the 8th day he must take 2 doves or 2 young pigeons before the Lord at the entrance of the meeting tent. He will give the 2 birds to the priest. The priest will offer the birds, one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. And the priest will make that person clean so he can belong to the Lord again. If semen goes out from a man, he must bathe in water. He will be unclean until evening. If the fluid gets on any clothing or leather, it must be washed with water. It will be unclean until evening. If a man has sexual relations with a woman and semen comes out, both people must bathe in water. They will be unclean until evening. When a woman has her monthly period, she is unclean for 7 days. Anyone who touches her will be unclean until evening. Anything she lies on during this time will be unclean, and everything she sits on during this time will be unclean. Anyone who touches her bed must wash his clothes and bathe in water. That person will be unclean until evening. Anyone who touches something she has sat on must wash his clothes and bathe in water. That person will be unclean until evening. It does not matter if the person touched the woman's bed or something she sat on. He will be unclean until evening. If a man has sexual relations with a woman and her monthly period touches him, he will be unclean for 7 days. Every bed he lies on will be unclean. If a woman has a loss of blood for many days, and it is not during her regular monthly period, or if she continues to have a loss of blood after her regular period, she will be unclean, as she is during her monthly period. She will be unclean for as long as she continues to bleed. Any bed she lies on during all the time of her bleeding will be like her bed during her regular monthly period. Everything she sits on will be unclean, as during her regular monthly period. Whoever touches those things will be unclean and must wash his clothes and bathe in water. He will be unclean until evening. When the woman becomes clean from her bleeding, she must wait 7 days, and after this she will be clean. Then on the 8th day she must take 2 doves or 2 young pigeons and bring them to the priest at the entrance of the meeting tent. The priest must offer 1 bird for a sin offering and the other for a whole burnt offering. In this way the priest will make her clean, so she can belong to the Lord again. So you must warn the people of Israel to stay separated from things that make them unclean. If you don't warn the people, they might make my holy tent unclean, and then they would have to die. These are the teachings for the person who discharges a bodily fluid, and for the man who becomes unclean from semen coming out of his body. These are the teachings for the woman who becomes unclean from her monthly period, for a man or woman who has a discharge, and for a man who becomes unclean by having sexual relations with a woman who is unclean. Chapter 16. Now 2 of Aaron's sons had died while offering incense to the Lord, and after that time the Lord spoke to Moses. The Lord said to him, "Tell your brother Aaron that there are times when he cannot go behind the curtain into the most holy place where the ark is. If he goes in when I appear in a cloud over the lid of the ark, he will die. This is how Aaron may enter the most holy place. Before he enters, he must offer a bull for a sin offering and a male sheep for a whole burnt offering. He must put on the holy linen inner robe, with the linen underclothes next to his body. His belt will be the cloth belt, and he will wear the linen turban. These are holy clothes, so he must bathe his body in water before he puts them on. Aaron must take from the people of Israel 2 male goats for a sin offering, and 1 male sheep for a burnt offering. Then he will offer the bull for the sin offering for himself to remove sins from him and his family, so they will belong to the Lord. Next, Aaron will take the 2 goats and bring them before the Lord at the entrance to the meeting tent. He will throw lots for the 2 goats. One will be for the Lord, and the other for the goat that removes sin. Then Aaron will take the goat that was chosen for the Lord by throwing the lot, and he will offer it as a sin offering. The other goat, which was chosen by lot to remove the sin, must be brought alive before the Lord. The priest will use it to perform the acts that remove Israel's sin, so they will belong to the Lord. Then this goat will be sent out into the desert as a goat that removes sin. Then Aaron will offer the bull as a sin offering for himself, to remove the sins from him and his family, so they will belong to the Lord. He will kill the bull for the sin offering for himself. Then he must take a pan full of burning coals from the altar before the Lord, and 2 handfuls of sweet incense that has been ground into powder. He must bring it into the room behind the curtain. He must put the incense on the fire before the Lord, so that the cloud of incense will cover the lid on the ark. Then, when Aaron comes in, he will not die. Also he must take some of the blood from the bull and sprinkle it with his finger on the front of the lid. With his finger he will sprinkle the blood 7 times in front of the lid. Then Aaron must kill the goat of the sin offering for the people, and bring its blood into the room behind the curtain. He must do with the goat's blood as he did with the bull's blood, sprinkling it on the lid and in front of the lid. Because the people of Israel have been unclean, Aaron will perform the acts to make the most holy place ready for service to the Lord. Then it will be clean from the sins and crimes of the Israelites. He must also do this for the meeting tent, because it stays in the middle of unclean people. When Aaron makes the most holy place ready for service to the Lord, no one is allowed in the meeting tent until he comes out. So Aaron will perform the acts to remove sins from himself, his family, and all the people of Israel, so they will belong to the Lord. Afterward he will go out to the altar that is before the Lord, and will make it ready for service to the Lord. Aaron will take some of the bull's blood and some of the goat's blood, and put it on the corners of the altar on all sides. Then with his finger he will sprinkle some of the blood on the altar 7 times to make the altar holy for the Lord, and clean from all the sins of the Israelites. When Aaron has finished making the most holy place, the meeting tent, and the altar ready for service to the Lord, he will offer the living goat. He will put both his hands on the head of the living goat, and he will confess over it all the sins and crimes of Israel. In this way Aaron will put the people's sins on the goat's head. Then he will send the goat away into the desert, and a man who has been appointed will lead the goat away. So the goat will carry on itself all the people's sins to a lonely place in the desert. The man who leads the goat will let it loose there. Then Aaron will enter the meeting tent, and take off the linen clothes he had put on before he went into the most holy place. He must leave these clothes there. He will bathe his body in water in a holy place, and put on his regular clothes. Then he will come out and offer the whole burnt offering for himself and for the people, to remove sins from himself and the people, so they will belong to the Lord. Then he will burn the fat of the sin offering on the altar. The person who led the goat to remove sins, into the desert, must wash his clothes and bathe his body in water. After that, he may come back into the camp. The bull and the goat for the sin offerings, whose blood was brought into the most holy place to make it ready for service to the Lord, must be taken outside the camp. The animals' skins, bodies, and intestines will be burned in the fire. Then the one who burns them must wash his clothes and bathe his body in water. After that, he may come back into the camp. This law will always continue for you. On the 10th day of the 7th month, you must deny yourself, and you must not do any work. The travelers or foreigners living with you must not work either. It is on this day that the priest will make you clean, so you will belong to the Lord again. All your sins will be removed. This is a very important day of rest for you, and you must deny yourselves. This law will continue forever. The priest appointed to take his father's place, on whom the oil was poured, will perform the acts for making things ready for service to the Lord. He must put on the holy linen clothes, and make the most holy place, the meeting tent, and the altar ready for service to the Lord. He must also remove the sins of the priests and all the people of Israel, so they will belong to the Lord. That law for removing the sins of the Israelites, so they will belong to the Lord, will continue forever. You will do these things once a year. So they did the things the Lord had commanded Moses. Chapter 17. The Lord said to Moses, "Speak to Aaron, his sons, and all the people of Israel. Tell them, this is what the Lord has commanded. If an Israelite kills an ox, a lamb, or a goat, either inside the camp or outside it, When he should have brought the animal to the entrance of the meeting tent as a gift to the Lord in front of the Lord's holy tent, he is guilty of killing. He has killed, and he must be cut off from the people. This rule is so people will bring their sacrifices, which they have been sacrificing in the open fields, to the Lord. They must bring those animals to the Lord at the entrance of the meeting tent. They must bring them to the priest and offer them as fellowship offering. Then the priest will sprinkle the blood from those animals on the Lord's altar, near the entrance of the meeting tent, and he will burn the fat from those animals on the altar, as a smell pleasing to the Lord. They must not offer any more sacrifices to their goat idols, which they have chased like prostitutes. These rules will continue for people from now on. Tell the people this: if any citizen of Israel or foreigner living with you offers a burnt offering or sacrifice, that person must take his sacrifice to the entrance of the meeting tent to offer it to the Lord. If he does not do this, he must be cut off from the people. I will be against any citizen of Israel or foreigner living with you who eats blood. I will cut off that person from the people. This is because the life of the body is in the blood, and I have given you rules for pouring that blood on the altar to remove your sins, so you will belong to the Lord. It is the blood that removes the sins, because it is life. So I tell the people of Israel this: none of you may eat blood, and no foreigner living among you may eat blood. If any citizen of Israel or foreigner living among you catches a wild animal or bird that can be eaten, that person must pour the blood on the ground and cover it with dirt. If blood is still in the meat, the animal's life is still in it. So I give this command to the people of Israel: don't eat meat that still has blood in it, because the animal's life is in its blood. Anyone who eats blood must be cut off. If a person, either a citizen or a foreigner, eats an animal that died by itself or was killed by another animal, he must wash his clothes and bathe in water. He will be unclean until evening, then he will be clean. If he does not wash his clothes and bathe his body, he will be guilty of sin. Chapter 18. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell the people of Israel, I am the Lord your God. In the past you lived in Egypt, but you must not do what was done in that country. And you must not do as they do in the land of Canaan, where I am bringing you. Do not follow their customs. You must obey my rules and follow them. I am the Lord your God. Obey my laws and rules. A person who obeys them will live because of them. I am the Lord. You must never have sexual relations with your close relatives. I am the Lord. You must not shame your father by having sexual relations with your mother. She is your mother. Do not have sexual relations with her. You must not have sexual relations with your father's wife. That would shame your father. You must not have sexual relations with your sister, either the daughter of your father or your mother. It doesn't matter if she was born in your house or somewhere else. You must not have sexual relations with your son's daughter or your daughter's daughter. That would bring shame on you. If your father and his wife have a daughter, she is your sister. You must not have sexual relations with her. You must not have sexual relations with your father's sister. She is your father's close relative. You must not have sexual relations with your mother's sister. She is your mother's close relative. You must not have sexual relations with the wife of your father's brother, because that would shame him. She is your aunt. You must not have sexual relations with your daughter-in-law. She is your son's wife. Do not have sexual relations with her. You must not have sexual relations with your brother's wife. That would shame your brother. You must not have sexual relations with both a woman and her daughter. And do not have sexual relations with this woman's granddaughter, either the daughter of her son or her daughter. They are her close relatives. It is evil to do this. While your wife is still living, you must not take her sister as another wife. Do not have sexual relations with her. You must not go near a woman to have sexual relations with her during her monthly period, when she is unclean. You must not have sexual relations with your neighbor's wife and make yourself unclean with her. You must not give any of your children to be sacrificed to Molech, because this would show that you do not respect your God. I am the Lord. You must not have sexual relations with a man as you would a woman. This is a hateful sin. You must not have sexual relations with an animal and make yourself unclean with it. Also, a woman must not have sexual relations with an animal. It is not natural. Don't make yourself unclean by any of these wrong things. I am forcing nations out of their countries because they did these sins, and I am giving their land to you. The land has become unclean, and I punished it for its sins. So the land is throwing out those people who live there. You must obey my laws and rules, and you must not do any of these hateful sins. These rules are for the citizens of Israel and for the people who live with you. The people who lived in the land before you did all these hateful things and made the land unclean. If you do these things, you will also make the land unclean, and it will throw you out as it threw out the nations before you. Anyone who does these hateful sins must be cut off from the people. Keep my command not to do these hateful sins that were done by the people who lived in the land before you. Don't make yourself unclean by doing them. I am the Lord your God. Chapter 19. The Lord said to Moses, Tell all the people of Israel, I am the Lord your God. You must be holy because I am holy. You must respect your mother and father, and you must keep my Sabbaths. I am the Lord your God. Do not worship idols or make statues or gods for yourselves. I am the Lord your God. When you sacrifice a fellowship offering to the Lord, offer it in such a way that will be accepted. You may eat it the same day you offer it, or on the next day. But if any is left on the third day, you must burn it up. If any of it is eaten on the third day, it is unclean, and it will not be accepted. Anyone who eats it then will be guilty of sin, because he did not respect the holy things that belong to the Lord. He must be cut off from the people. When you harvest your crops on your land, do not harvest all the way to the corners of your field. If grain falls into the ground, don't gather it up. Don't pick all the grapes in your vineyards, and don't pick up the grapes that fall to the ground. You must leave those things for poor people, and for people traveling through your country. I am the Lord your God. You must not steal. You must not cheat people, and you must not lie to each other. You must not make a false promise by my name, or you will show that you don't respect your God. I am the Lord. You must not cheat your neighbor or rob him. You must not keep a hired worker's salary all night until morning. You must not curse a deaf person, or put something in front of a blind person to make him fall. But you must respect your God. I am the Lord. Be fair in your judging. You must not show special favor to poor people or great people, but be fair when you judge your neighbor. You must not spread false stories against other people. And you must not do anything that would put your neighbor's life in danger. I am the Lord. You must not hate your fellow citizen in your heart. If your neighbor does something wrong, tell him about it, or you will be partly to blame. Forget about the wrong things people do to you, and do not try to get even. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. I am the Lord. Obey my laws. You must not mate 2 different kinds of cattle, or sow your field with 2 different kinds of seed. You must not wear clothing made from 2 different kinds of material mixed together. If a man has sexual relations with a slave girl of another man, but the slave girl has not been bought or given her freedom, there must be punishment. But they are not to be put to death, because the woman was not free. The man must bring a male sheep as his penalty offering to the Lord at the entrance to the meeting tent. The priest will offer the sheep as a penalty offering before the Lord for the man's sin, to remove the sins of the man, so he will belong to the Lord. Then he will be forgiven for his sin. In the future, when you enter your country, you will plant many kinds of trees for food. After planting a tree, wait 3 years before using its fruit. In the 4th year, the fruit from the tree will be the Lord's, a holy offering of praise to Him. Then in the 5th year, you may eat the fruit from the tree. The tree will then produce more fruit for you. I am the Lord your God. You must not eat anything with the blood in it. You must not try to tell the future by signs or black magic. You must not cut the hair on the sides of your heads or cut the edges of your beard. You must not cut your body to show sadness for someone who died or put tattoo marks on yourself. I am the Lord. Do not dishonor your daughter by making her become a prostitute. If you do this, the country will be filled with all kinds of sin. Obey the laws about Sabbaths and respect my most holy place. I am the Lord. Do not go to mediums or fortune tellers for advice, or you will become unclean. I am the Lord your God. Show respect to old people. Stand up in their presence. Show respect also to your God. I am the Lord. Do not mistreat foreigners living in your country, but treat them just as you treat your own citizens. Love foreigners as you love yourselves, because you were foreigners one time in Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Do not cheat when you measure the length or weight or amount of something. Your weights and balances should weigh correctly, with your weighing baskets the right size, and your jars holding the right amount of liquid. I am the Lord your God. I brought you out of the land of Egypt. Remember all my laws and rules and obey them. I am the Lord. Chapter 20. The Lord said to Moses, You must also tell the people of Israel these things. If a person in your country gives one of his children to Molech, that person must be killed. It doesn't matter if he is a citizen or a foreigner living in Israel. You must throw stones at him and kill him. I will be against him and cut him off from his people, because he gave his children to Molech. He showed that he did not respect my holy name, and he made my holy place unclean. The people of the community might ignore that person and not kill the one who gave his children to Molech. But I will be against him and his family, and I will cut him off from his people. I will do this to anyone who follows him in being unfaithful to me by worshiping Molech. I will be against anyone who goes to mediums and fortune tellers for advice, because that person is being unfaithful to me. So I will cut him off from his people. Be my holy people. Be holy, because I am the Lord your God. Remember and obey my laws. I am the Lord, and I have made you holy. Anyone who curses his father or mother must be put to death. He has cursed his father or mother, so he has brought his own death on himself. If a man has sexual relations with his neighbor's wife, both the man and the woman are guilty of adultery and must be put to death. If a man has sexual relations with his father's wife, he has shamed his father, and both the man and his father's wife must be put to death. They have brought it on themselves. If a man has sexual relations with his daughter-in-law, both of them must be put to death. What they have done is not natural. They have brought their own deaths on themselves. If a man has sexual relations with another man, as a man does with a woman, these two men have done a hateful sin. They must be put to death. They have brought it on themselves. If a man has sexual relations with both a woman and her mother, this is evil. The people must burn that man and the two women in fire, so that your people will not be evil. If a man has sexual relations with an animal, he must be put to death. You must also kill the animal. If a woman approaches an animal and has sexual relations with it, you must kill the woman and the animal. They must be put to death. They have brought it on themselves. It is shameful for a brother to marry his sister, the daughter of either his father or his mother, and to have sexual relations with her. In front of everyone, they must both be cut off from their people. The man has shamed his sister, and he is guilty of sin. If a man has sexual relations with a woman during her monthly period, both the woman and the man must be cut off from their people. They sinned because they showed the source of her blood. Do not have sexual relations with your mother's sister or your father's sister, because that would shame a close relative. Both of you are guilty of this sin. If a man has sexual relations with his uncle's wife, he has shamed his uncle. That man and his uncle's wife will die without children. They are guilty of sin. It is unclean for a man to marry his brother's wife. That man has shamed his brother, and they will have no children. Remember all my laws and rules and obey them. I am leading you to your own land, and if you obey my laws and rules, that land will not throw you out. I am forcing out ahead of you the people who live there, because they did all these sins. I have hated them. Do not live the way those people lived. I have told you that you will get their land, which I will give to you as your very own. It is a fertile land. I am the Lord your God, and I have set you apart from other people and made you my own. So you must treat clean animals and birds differently from unclean animals and birds. Do not make yourselves unclean by any of these unclean birds or animals or things that crawl on the ground, which I have made unclean for you. So you must be holy to me, because I, the Lord, am holy, and I have set you apart from other people to be my own. A man or woman who is a medium or a fortune teller must be put to death. You must stone them to death. They have brought it on themselves. Chapter 21. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell these things to Aaron's sons, the priests. A priest must not make himself unclean by touching a dead person. But if the dead person was one of his close relatives, he may touch him. The priest may make himself unclean if the dead person is his mother or father, son or daughter, brother or unmarried sister who is close to him because she has no husband. The priest may make himself unclean for her if she dies. But a priest must not make himself unclean if the dead person was only related to him by marriage. Priests must not shave their heads, or shave off the edges of their beards, or cut their bodies. They must be holy to their God and show respect for God's name, because they present the offerings made by fire to the Lord, which is the food of their God, so they must be holy. A priest must not marry an unclean prostitute or a divorced woman, because he is holy to his God. Treat him as holy, because he offers up the food of your God. Think of him as holy. I am the Lord who makes you holy, and I am holy. If a priest's daughter makes herself unclean by becoming a prostitute, she shames her father. She must be burned with fire. The high priest, who was chosen from among his brothers, had the special olive oil poured on his head. He was also appointed to wear the priestly clothes, so he must not show his sadness by letting his hair go uncombed or tearing his clothes. He must not go into a house where there is a dead body. He must not make himself unclean, even if it is for his own father or mother. The high priest must not go out of the holy place, because if he does and becomes unclean, he will make God's holy place unclean. The special oil used in appointing priests was poured on his head to separate him from the rest of the people. I am the Lord. The high priest must marry a woman who is a virgin. He must not marry a widow, a divorced woman, or a prostitute. He must marry a virgin from his own people, so the people will respect his children as his own. I am the Lord. I have set the high priest apart for his special job. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron, if any of your descendants have something wrong with them, they must never come near to offer the special food of their God. Anyone who has something wrong with him must not come near: blind men, crippled men, men with damaged faces, deformed men, men with a crippled foot or hand, hunchbacks, dwarfs, men who have something wrong with their eyes, men who have an itching disease or a skin disease, or men who have damaged sex glands. If one of Aaron's descendants has something wrong with him, he cannot come near to make the offerings made by fire to the Lord. He has something wrong with him. He cannot offer the food of his God. He may eat the most holy food and also the holy food, but he may not go through the curtain into the most holy place, and he may not go near the altar, because he has something wrong with him. He must not make my holy place unfit. I am the Lord who makes these places holy. So Moses told these things to Aaron, Aaron's sons, and all the people of Israel. Chapter 22. The Lord said to Moses, Tell Aaron and his sons, The people of Israel will give offerings to me. These offerings are holy, and they are mine, so you must respect them to show that you respect my holy name. I am the Lord. Say to them, If any one of your descendants from now on is unclean and comes near the offerings that the Israelites made holy for me, that person must be cut off from appearing before me. I am the Lord. If one of Aaron's descendants has a harmful skin disease, or if he discharges a body fluid, he cannot eat the holy offerings until he becomes clean. He could also become unclean from touching a dead body, from his own semen, from touching any unclean crawling animal, or from touching an unclean person, no matter what made the person unclean. Anyone who touches those things will become unclean until evening. That person must not eat the holy offerings unless he washes with water. He will be clean only after the sun goes down. Then he may eat the holy offerings. The offerings are his food. If a priest finds an animal that died by itself or that was killed by some other animal, he must not eat it. If he does, he will become unclean. I am the Lord. If the priests keep all the rules I have given, they will not become guilty. If they are careful, they will not die. I am the Lord who has made them holy. Only people in a priest's family may eat the holy offerings. A visitor staying with the priest or a hired worker must not eat it. But if the priest buys a slave with his own money, that slave may eat the holy offerings. Slaves who were born in his house may also eat his food. If a priest's daughter marries a person who is not a priest, she must not eat any of the holy offerings. But if the priest's daughter becomes widowed or divorced, with no children to support her, and if she goes back to her father's house where she lived as a child, she may eat some of her father's food. But only people from a priest's family may eat this food. If someone eats some of the holy offerings by mistake, that person must pay back the priest for that holy food, adding another 1/5 of the price of that food. When the Israelites give their holy offerings to the Lord, the priest must not treat these holy things as though they were not holy. The priests must not allow those who are not priests to eat the holy offerings. If they do, they cause the ones who eat the holy offerings to become guilty, and they will have to pay for it. I am the Lord who makes them holy. The Lord said to Moses, Tell Aaron and his sons and all the people of Israel, a citizen of Israel or a foreigner living in Israel might want to bring a whole burnt offering, either for some special promise he has made or for a special gift he wants to give to the Lord. If he does, he must bring a male animal that has nothing wrong with it, a bull, a sheep, or a goat, so it might be accepted for him. He must not bring an animal that has something wrong with it, or it will not be accepted for him. If someone brings a fellowship offering to the Lord, either as payment for a special promise the person has made, or as a special gift the person wants to give the Lord, it might be from the herd or from the flock, but it must be healthy, with nothing wrong with it, so that it will be accepted. You must not offer to the Lord any animal that is blind, that has broken bones or is crippled, that has running sores or any sort of skin disease. You must not offer any animals like these on the altar as an offering by fire to the Lord. If an ox or lamb is smaller than normal or is not perfectly formed, you may give it as a special gift to the Lord. It will be accepted, but it will not be accepted as payment for a special promise you have made. If an animal has bruised, crushed, torn, or cut sex glands, you must not offer it to the Lord. You must not do this in your own land, and you must not take such animals from foreigners as sacrifices to the Lord. Because the animals have been hurt in some way and have something wrong with them, they will not be accepted for you. The Lord said to Moses, "When an ox, a sheep, or a goat is born, it must stay 7 days with its mother. But from the 8th day on, this animal will be accepted as a sacrifice by fire to the Lord. But you must not kill the animal and its mother on the same day, either an ox or a sheep. If you want to offer some special offering of thanks to the Lord, you must do it in a way that pleases Him. You must eat the whole animal that same day and not leave any of the meat for the next morning. I am the Lord. Remember my commands and obey them. I am the Lord. Show respect for my holy name. You Israelites must remember that I am holy. I am the Lord who has made you holy. I brought you out of Egypt to be your God. I am the Lord." Chapter 23. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell the people of Israel, you will announce the Lord's appointed feasts as holy meetings. These are my special feasts. There are 6 days for you to work, but the 7th day will be a special day of rest. It is a day for a holy meeting. You must not do any work. It is a Sabbath to the Lord in all your homes. These are the Lord's appointed feasts, the holy meetings, which you will announce at the time set for them. The Lord's Passover is on the 14th day of the first month, beginning at twilight. The Feast of Unleavened Bread begins on the 15th day of the same month. You will eat bread made without yeast for 7 days. On the first day of this feast, you will have a holy meeting, and you must not do any work. For 7 days you will bring an offering made by fire to the Lord. There will be a holy meeting on the 7th day, and on that day you must not do any regular work." The Lord said to Moses, "Tell the people of Israel, you will enter the land I will give you and gather its harvest. At that time you must bring the first bundle of grain from your harvest to the priest. The priest will present the bundle before the Lord, and it will be accepted for you. He will present the bundle on the day after the Sabbath. On the day when you present the bundle of grain, offer a male lamb, 1 year old, that has nothing wrong with it, as a burnt offering to the Lord. You must also offer a grain offering. 4 quarts of fine flour mixed with olive oil is an offering made by fire to the Lord. Its smell will be pleasing to Him. You must also offer a quart of wine as a drink offering. Until the day you bring your offering to your God, do not eat any new grain, roasted grain, or bread made from new grain. This law will always continue for people from now on, wherever you live. Count 7 full weeks from the morning after the Sabbath. This is the Sabbath that you bring the bundle of grain to present as an offering. On the 50th day, the first day after the 7th week, you will bring a new grain offering to the Lord. On that day bring 2 loaves of bread from your homes to be presented as an offering. Use yeast and 4 quarts of flour to make those loaves of bread. They will be your gift to the Lord from the first wheat of your harvest. Offer with the bread 1 young bull, 2 male sheep, and 7 male lambs that are 1 year old and have nothing wrong with them. Offer them with their grain offerings and drink offerings as a burnt offering to the Lord. They will be an offering made by fire, and the smell will be pleasing to the Lord. You must also offer 1 male goat for a sin offering, and 2 male 1 year old lambs as a fellowship offering. The priest will present the 2 lambs as an offering before the Lord, along with the bread from the first wheat of the harvest. They are holy to the Lord, and they will belong to the priest. On that same day you will call a holy meeting. You must not do any work that day. This law will continue for you from now on, wherever you live. When you harvest your crops on your land, do not harvest all the way to the corners of your field. If grain falls on the ground, don't gather it up. Leave it for poor people and foreigners in your country. I am the Lord your God. Again the Lord said to Moses, "Tell the people of Israel, on the first day of the 7th month, you must have a special day of rest, a holy meeting when you blow the trumpet for a special time of remembering. Do not do any work, and bring an offering made by fire to the Lord." The Lord said to Moses, "The day of cleansing will be on the 10th day of the 7th month. There will be a holy meeting, and you will deny yourselves and bring an offering made by fire to the Lord. Do not do any work on that day, because it is the day of cleansing. On that day the priests will go before the Lord and perform the acts to make you clean from sin, so you will belong to the Lord. Anyone who refuses to give up food on this day must be cut off from the people. If anyone works on this day, I will destroy that person from among the people. You must not do any work at all. This law will continue for people from now on, wherever you live. It will be a special day of rest for you, and you must deny yourselves. You will start this special day of rest on the evening after the 9th day of the month, and it will continue from that evening until the next evening." Again the Lord said to Moses, "Tell the people of Israel, on the 15th day of the 7th month is the Feast of Shelters. This feast to the Lord will continue for 7 days. There will be a holy meeting on the first day. Do not do any work. You will bring an offering made by fire to the Lord each day for 7 days. On the 8th day you will have another holy meeting, and you will bring an offering made by fire to the Lord. This will be a holy meeting. Do not do any work. These are the Lord's special feasts, when there will be holy meetings, and when you bring offerings made by fire to the Lord. You will bring whole burnt offerings, grain offerings, sacrifices, and drink offerings, each at the right time. These offerings are in addition to those for the Lord's Sabbath days, in addition to offerings you give as payment for special promises, and in addition to special offerings you want to give to the Lord. So on the 15th day of the 7th month, after you have gathered in the crops of the land, celebrate the Lord's festival for 7 days. You must rest on the first day and the 8th day. On the first day you will take good fruit from the fruit trees, as well as branches from palm trees, poplars, and other leafy trees. You will celebrate before the Lord your God for 7 days. Celebrate this festival to the Lord for 7 days each year. This law will continue from now on. You will celebrate it in the 7th month. Live in shelters for 7 days. All the people born in Israel must live in shelters, so that all your descendants will know I made Israel live in shelters during the time I brought them out of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. So Moses told the people of Israel about all the Lord's appointed feast days. Chapter 24. The Lord said to Moses, "Command the people of Israel to bring you pure oil from crushed olives. That oil is for the lamps, so that these lamps may never go out. Aaron will keep the lamps burning in the meeting tent from evening until morning before the Lord. This is in front of the curtain of the Ark of the Agreement. This law will continue from now on. Aaron must always keep the lamps burning on the lampstands of pure gold before the Lord. Take fine flour and bake 12 loaves of bread with it, using 4 quarts of flour for each loaf. Put them in 2 rows on the golden table before the Lord, 6 loaves in each row. Put pure incense on each row as the memorial portion to take the place of the bread. It is an offering made by fire to the Lord. Every Sabbath day Aaron will put the bread in order before the Lord, as an agreement with the people of Israel that will continue forever. That bread will belong to Aaron and his sons. They will eat it in a holy place, because it is a most holy part of the offerings made by fire to the Lord. That bread is their share forever. Now there was a son of an Israelite woman and an Egyptian father, who was walking among the Israelites. A fight broke out in the camp between him and an Israelite. The son of the Israelite woman began cursing and speaking against the Lord, so the people took him to Moses. The mother's name was Shelemith, the daughter of Dibri, from the family of Dan. The people held him as a prisoner while they waited for the Lord's command to be made clear to them. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Take the one who spoke against me outside the camp. Then all the people who heard him must put their hands on his head, and all the people must throw stones at him and kill him. Tell the people of Israel this: if anyone curses his God, he is guilty of sin. Anyone who speaks against the Lord must be put to death. All the people must kill him by throwing stones at him. Foreigners must be punished just like the people born in Israel. If they speak against the Lord, they must be put to death. Whoever kills another person must be put to death. Whoever kills an animal that belongs to another person must give that person another animal to take its place. And whoever causes an injury to a neighbor must receive the same kind of injury in return. Broken bone for broken bone, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Anyone who injures another person must be injured in the same way in return. Whoever kills another person's animal must give that person another animal to take its place. But whoever kills another person must be put to death. The law will be the same for the foreigner as for those from your own country. I am the Lord your God." Then Moses spoke to the people of Israel, and they took the person who had cursed outside the camp and killed him by throwing stones at him. So the people of Israel did as the Lord had commanded Moses. Chapter 25. The Lord said to Moses at Mount Sinai, "Tell the people of Israel this: when you enter the land I will give you, let it have a special time of rest to honor the Lord. You may plant seed in your field for 6 years, and you may trim your vineyards for 6 years and bring in their fruits. But during the 7th year you must let the land rest. This will be a special time to honor the Lord. You must not plant seed in your field or trim your vineyards. You must not cut the crops that grow by themselves after harvest, or gather the grapes from your vines that are not trimmed. The land will have a year of rest. You may eat whatever the land produces during the year of rest. It will be food for your men and women servants, for your hired workers, and for the foreigners living in your country. It will also be food for your cattle and the wild animals of your land. Whatever the land produces may be eaten. Count off 7 groups of 7 years, or 49 years. During that time there will be 7 years of rest for the land. On the day of cleansing, you must blow the horn of a male sheep. This will be on the 10th day of the 7th month. You must blow the horn through the whole country. Make the 50th year a special year, and announce freedom for all the people living in your country. This time will be called Jubilee. You will each go back to your own property, each to your own family and family group. The 50th year will be a special time for you to celebrate. Don't plant seeds or harvest the crops that grow by themselves, or gather grapes from the vines that are not trimmed. That year is Jubilee. It will be a holy time for you. You may eat only the crops that come from the field. In the year of Jubilee, you must each go back to your own property. If you sell your land to your neighbor, or if you buy land from your neighbor, don't cheat each other. If you want to buy your neighbor's land, count the number of years since the last Jubilee, and use that number to decide the right price. If your neighbor sells the land to you, count the number of years left for harvesting crops, and use that number to decide the right price. If there are many years, the price will be high. But if there are only a few years, lower the price, because your neighbor is really selling only a few crops to you. You must not cheat each other, but you must respect your God. I am the Lord your God. Remember my laws and rules, and obey them, so that you will live safely in the land. The land will give good crops to you, and you will eat as much as you want, and live safely in the land. But you might ask, if we don't plant seeds or gather crops, what will we eat the 7th year? I will send you such a great blessing during the 6th year, that the land will produce enough crops for 3 years. When you plant in the 8th year, you will still be eating from the old crop. You will eat the old crop until the harvest of the 9th year. The land really belongs to me, so you can't sell it for all time. You are only foreigners and travelers living for a while on my land. People might sell their land, but it must always be possible for the family to get its land back. If a person in your country becomes very poor and sells some land, then close relatives must come and buy it back. If there is not a close relative to buy the land back, but if the person makes enough money to be able to buy it back, the years must be counted since the land was sold. That number must be used to decide how much the first owner should pay back the one who bought it. Then the land will belong to the first owner again. But if there is not enough money to buy it back, the one who bought it will keep it until the year of Jubilee. During that celebration, the land will go back to the first owner's family. If someone sells a home in a walled city for a full year after it is sold, the person has the right to buy it back. But if the owner does not buy back the house before a full year is over, it will belong to the one who bought it and to his future sons. The house will not go back to the first owner at Jubilee. But houses in small towns without walls are like open country. They can be bought back, and they must be returned to their first owner at Jubilee. The Levites may always buy back their houses in the cities that belong to them. If someone buys a house from a Levite, that house in the Levite city will again belong to the Levite in the Jubilee. This is because houses in Levite cities belong to the people of Levi. The Israelites gave these cities to them. Also the fields and pastures around the Levite cities cannot be sold, because those fields belong to the Levites forever. If anyone from your country becomes too poor to support himself, help him to live among you as you would a stranger or foreigner. Do not charge him any interest on money you loan to him, but respect your God. Let the poor live among you. Don't lend him money for interest, and don't try to make a profit from the food he buys. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, to give the land of Canaan to you and to become your God. If anyone from your country becomes very poor and sells himself as a slave to you, you must not make him work like a slave. He will be like a hired worker and a visitor with you until the year of Jubilee. Then he may leave you, take his children, and go back to his family and the land of his ancestors. This is because the Israelites are my servants, and I brought them out of slavery in Egypt. They must not become slaves again. You must not rule this person cruelly, but you must respect your God. Your men and women slaves must come from other nations around you. From them you may buy slaves. Also you may buy as slaves children from the families of foreigners living in your land. These child slaves will belong to you, and you may even pass them on to your children after you die. You can make them slaves forever. But you must not rule cruelly over your own people, the Israelites. Suppose a foreigner or visitor among you becomes rich. If someone in your country becomes so poor that he has to sell himself as a slave to the foreigner living among you or to a member of the foreigner's family, the poor person has the right to be bought back and become free. One of his relatives may buy him back. His uncle, his uncle's son, or any one of his close relatives may buy him back. Or, if he gets enough money, he may pay the money to free himself. He and the one who bought him must count the time from when he sold himself up to the next year of Jubilee. Use that number to decide the price, because the person really only hired himself out for a certain number of years. If there are still many years before the year of Jubilee, the person must pay back a large part of the price. If there are only a few years left until Jubilee, the person must pay a small part of the first price. But he will live like a hired person with the foreigner every year. Don't let the foreigner rule cruelly over him. Even if no one buys him back, at the year of Jubilee, he and his children will become free. This is because the people of Israel are servants to me. They are my servants, whom I brought out of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Chapter 26. Don't make idols for yourselves, or set up statues or memorials. Don't put stone statues in your land to bow down to, because I am the Lord your God. Remember my Sabbaths, and respect my holy place. I am the Lord. If you remember my laws and commands and obey them, I will give you rains at the right season. The land will produce crops, and the trees of the field will produce their fruit. Your threshing will continue until the grape harvest, and your grape harvest will continue until it is time to plant. Then you will have plenty to eat and live safely in your land. I will give peace to your country. You will lie down in peace, and no one will make you afraid. I will keep harmful animals out of your country, and armies will not pass through it. You will chase your enemies and defeat them, killing them with your sword. 5 of you will chase 100 men. 100 of you will chase 10,000 men. You will defeat your enemies and kill them with your sword. Then I will show kindness to you and let you have many children. I will keep my agreement with you. You will have enough crops to last for more than a year. When you harvest the new crops, you will have to throw out the old ones to make room for them. Also, I will place my holy tent among you, and I will not turn away from you. I will walk with you and be your God, and you will be my people. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, for you were slaves. I broke the heavy weights that were on your shoulders and let you walk proudly again. But if you do not obey me and keep all my commands, and if you turn away from my rules and hate my laws, refusing to obey all my commands, you have broken our agreement. As a result, I will do this to you. I will cause terrible things to happen to you. I will cause you to have disease and fever that will destroy your eyes and slowly kill you. You will not have success when you plant your seed, and your enemy will eat your crops. I will be against you, and your enemies will defeat you. These people who hate you will rule over you, and you will run away even when no one is chasing you. If after all of this you still do not obey me, I will punish you 7 times more for your sins. I will break your great pride, and I will make the sky like iron and the earth like bronze. You will work hard, but it will not help. Your land will not grow any crops, and your trees will not give their fruit. If you still turn against me and refuse to obey me, I will beat you 7 times harder. The more you sin, the more you will be punished. I will send wild animals to attack you, and they will take your children away from you and destroy your cattle. They will make you so few in number the roads will be empty. If you don't learn your lesson after all these things, and if you still turn against me, I will also turn against you. I will punish you 7 more times for your sins. You broke my agreement, and I will punish you. I will bring armies against you. And if you go into your cities for safety, I will cause diseases to spread among you, so that your enemy will defeat you. There will be very little bread to eat. 10 women will be able to cook all your bread in one oven. They will measure each piece of bread, and you will eat, but you will still be hungry. If you still refuse to listen to me, and still turn against me, I will show my great anger. I will punish you 7 more times for your sins. You will eat the bodies of your sons and daughters. I will destroy your places where gods are worshipped, and cut down your incense altars. I will pile your dead bodies on the lifeless forms of your idols. I will hate you. I will destroy your cities and make your holy places empty, and I will not smell the pleasing smell of your offerings. I will make the land empty, so that your enemies who come to live in it will be shocked at it. I will scatter you among the nations, and I will pull out my sword and destroy you. Your land will become empty, your cities a waste. When you are taken to your enemy's country, your land will finally get its rest. It will enjoy its time of rest all the time it lies empty. During the time the land is empty, it will have the rest you should have given it while you lived in it. Those of you who are left alive will lose their courage in the land of their enemies. They will be frightened by the sound of a leaf being blown by the wind. They will run as if someone were chasing them with a sword, and they will fall even when no one is chasing them. They will fall over each other as if someone were chasing them with a sword, even though no one is chasing them. You will not be strong enough to stand up against your enemies. You will die among other nations and disappear in your enemies' countries. So those who are left alive will rot away in their enemies' countries because of their sins. They will also rot away because of their ancestors' sins. But maybe the people will confess their sins and the sins of their ancestors. Maybe they will admit they turned against me and sinned against me, which made me turn against them and send them into the land of their enemies. If these disobedient people are sorry for what they did and accept punishment for their sin, I will remember my agreement with Jacob, my agreement with Isaac, and my agreement with Abraham, and I will remember the land. The land will be left empty by its people, and it will enjoy its time of rest as it lies bare without them. Then those who are left alive will accept the punishment for their sins. They will learn that they were punished because they hated my laws and refused to obey my rules. But even though this is true, I will not turn away from them when they are in the land of their enemies. I will not hate them so much that I completely destroy them and break my agreement with them, because I am the Lord their God. For their good I will remember the agreement with their ancestors, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt so I could become their God. The other nations saw these things. I am the Lord. These are the laws, rules, and teachings the Lord made between himself and the Israelites through Moses at Mount Sinai. Chapter 27. The Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the people of Israel and tell them, if someone makes a special promise to give a person as a servant to the Lord by paying a price that is the same value as that person. The price for a man 20 to 60 years old is about 1 1/4 pounds of silver. You must use the measure as set by the holy place. The price for a woman 20 to 60 years old is about 12 ounces of silver. The price for a man 5 to 20 years old is about 8 ounces of silver. For a woman, it is about 4 ounces of silver. The price for a baby boy 1 month to 5 years old is about 2 ounces of silver. For a baby girl, the price is about 1 1/2 ounces of silver. The price for a man 60 years old or older is about 6 ounces of silver. For a woman, it is about 4 ounces of silver. If anyone is too poor to pay the price, bring him to the priest, and the priest will set the price. The priest will decide how much money the person making the vow can afford to pay. Some animals may be used as sacrifices to the Lord. If someone promises to bring one of these to the Lord, it will become holy. That person must not try to put another animal in its place or exchange it, a good animal for a bad one, or a bad animal for a good one. If this happens, both animals will become holy. Unclean animals cannot be offered as sacrifices to the Lord, and if someone brings one of them to the Lord, that animal must be brought to the priest. The priest will decide a price for the animal, according to whether it is good or bad. As the priest decides, that is the price for the animal. If the person wants to buy back the animal, an additional 1/5 must be added to the price. If a person gives a house as holy to the Lord, the priest must decide its value, according to whether the house is good or bad. As the priest decides, that is the price for the house. But if the person who gives the house wants to buy it back, an additional 1/5 must be added to the price. Then the house will belong to that person again. If a person gives some family property to the Lord, the value of the fields will depend on how much seed is needed to plant them. It will cost about 1 1/4 pounds of silver for each 6 bushels of barley seed needed. If the person gives a field at the year of Jubilee, its value will stay at what the priest has decided. But if the person gives the field after the Jubilee, the priest must decide the exact price by counting the number of years to the next year of Jubilee. Then he will subtract that number from its value. If the person who gave the field wants to buy it back, 1/5 must be added to that price, and the field will belong to the first owner again. If the person does not buy back the field, or if it is sold to someone else, the first person cannot ever buy it back. When the land is released at the year of Jubilee, it will become holy to the Lord, like land specially given to him. It will become the property of the priests. If someone gives to the Lord a field he has bought, which is not a part of his family land, the priest must count the years to the next Jubilee. He must decide the price for the land, and the price must be paid on that day. Then that land will be holy to the Lord. At the year of Jubilee, the land will go back to its first owner, to the family who sold the land. You must use the measure as set by the holy place in paying these prices. It weighs 2/5 of an ounce. If an animal is the first one born to its parent, it already belongs to the Lord, so people may not give it again. If it is a cow or a sheep, it is the Lord's. If the animal is unclean, the person must buy it back for the price set by the priest, and the person must add 1/5 to that price. If it is not bought back, the priest must sell it for the price he has decided. There is a special kind of gift that people set apart to give to the Lord. It may be a person, animal, or field from the family property. That gift cannot be bought back or sold. Every special kind of gift is most holy to the Lord. If anyone is given for the purpose of being destroyed, he cannot be bought back. He must be put to death. 1/10 of all crops belongs to the Lord, including the crops from the fields and the fruit from trees. That 1/10 is holy to the Lord. If a person wants to get back that 1/10, 1/5 must be added to its price. The priest will take every 10th animal from a person's herd or flock, and it will be holy to the Lord. The owner should not pick out the good animals from the bad, or exchange one animal for another. If that happens, both animals will become holy. They cannot be bought back. These are the commands the Lord gave to Moses at Mount Sinai for the people of Israel.